Alright, so, I mean, you clicked on the title, so you already know what this is going to be about, but we have lost one of the members of Kraftwerk. I think, even though the news is being reported today, I think it happened a few days ago. Florian Schneider, I think I pronounced that right. No, it's not because of what you think. I think it was actually because of cancer, but I'm not exactly sure. But you can do your research on that. Yeah, he was the same age as my grandfather, so that's pretty interesting. But no, I mean, normally, you know, I do not make these news kind of videos. It's just not what I do. But this is big enough news that I should make a video on it. So some of you might not, but if you do follow my channel, most of you probably do like electronic music to some degree, and some of you will disagree with me, but Kraftwerk are basically the pioneers of electronic music. Now, they started out with like krautrock with their first few albums, but you see, when they did Autobahn, that was like their crossover album. That's what got them more on the map. Then they had what people call a blunder. I don't think it's a blunder. I really like it. But their first like electronic album was Radioactivity, but you know, in German. That's a very underrated album. Very underrated. Very underrated. Whereas most of their music was trying to be kind of like futuristic, but seen from a 70s, early 80s view. Radioactivity felt more like just dark and sinister compared to their other stuff. But I don't know. I mean, yeah. But we shall not mention this. We shall not mention this. Now, Trans-Europe Express, this, to me, this is where they really started to shine, and they did my favorite 3 running albums in a row. Let's click it. Open a link in a new tab. Oh shoot, I clicked the wrong one. Oops. Well, we'll just do it this way. It'll be easier. I have a couple tabs open, but you can pause and read that if you'd like. And of course, you can see there's English titles for all of these as well. A lot of Kraftwerk songs are in English as well as German, as well as other languages. Like if you think of Pocket Calculator, it's in 5 different languages, I think at least. There's an English, there's a German, there's a Japanese, there's a French and Italian. The German, the English, and the Japanese ones are the best. The French one's kind of the Italian one's but yeah. But Trans-Europe Express, if you know Africa and Bambaataa, he copied part of Trans-Europe Express. So a lot of their music was taken into hip-hop and other similar kinds of music of the 80s and just remixed. So that added to their popularity because people wanted to learn where those sounds came from. So later on, they got discovered by even more people. But yeah. But see, back in '77, not really many people were doing this kind of music. You see, Gary Newman's band, what were they called? Two-Boy Army. When they start? When was their first album? '78, I think. We'll look that up. Let's look that up real quick. Dude's gone. It always defaults to this artist. It's glitched like that. So. Good artist though, by the way. But let's not get too off focus. But yeah, his first album was from '78. Now, I really think that this album, I might be wrong, but I really want to think that this album is what inspired him to do his first Two-Boy Army album. Because I think this album was one of the first that got the ball really rolling. Of course, there's earlier albums, but this one is what really got it rolling. A lot of great tracks on here. But this one is, or still, we're still gonna get. Some people will say this is the best, but I think that it gets better from here. Now we're on to my favorite, definitely my top two, the Man Machine and Computer World, but obviously in German. All right. The Robot, Space Lab, Metropolis, The Model, Neon Lights, The Man Machine. I took German in elementary school, so I don't know German, but like I know these songs in English, plus I know a little German where I can put it together. But yeah, this album I think is, I might be wrong, but I think this is their most popular album. I could be wrong, but it's a really good album. Sorry, this is kind of weird. I don't do these review videos like this, but I'm doing something special just because of the whole thing that happened and just their massive influence on music. My grandfather has the Kraftwerk Autobahn album. He got it when it was new. You know, my grandfather was a hippie, so he was into the weird kind of interesting stuff back then, so that was up his alley, I guess. But yeah, we are the robots, beep boop boop boop. But I like The Model. The Model is probably my favorite track from this album. Neon Lights is nice. Metropolis, Space Lab. Honestly, what's weird is people really know this track, The Robots, but that's probably my least favorite track from the album. Even though I did make a remix of it, I don't know, God, no, 5-6 years ago, just for fun. Because I just had an idea of, hey, let's just make it all glitchy, like a robot glitching out. So that was my whole theme with it. But that was fun. But anyways, no, if you've never listened to Kraftwerk ever, I'd start with this track, and I would I would start with either this album or Computer World. Maybe I'd say start with Computer World and then go down to this one. It just depends on the person. Also, available in German or English, depending on what you like. You know, The Model really, though, is what stands out the most from this album. I really like it. But if you see most pictures of them, they're in this layout, or they're in their robot. They have their little robots that they used on stage. Like, this is what they're most famous and known for. Now let's go back. Now I'm sorry this video is not going to be too long, to be quick. Computer World. Now, they're still on a roll. 1981. Now, this one is, as the last album was like robot themed, this one is all computers. There's a lot of weird computery noises. Computer World is a good song. You know, there's German and English versions. Just all of them are pretty good. Computer Love, though, is probably my favorite from this album. It's just, it's one of those weird tracks that's happy and then also depressing at the same time. It's kind of like a track that makes you think of the past good times, which is happy to think about, but also depressing that those times are gone. So, if you've never ever listened to Kraftwerk, I would recommend you start off with Kraftwerk Computer Love as your first track. You listen to them. Now, this album is a kind of a mixture between some more dreamy, happy, sad, kind of just retrospective kind of tracks, but also some weird, in-your-face, sci-fi, computery stuff. Like it's more fun to compute when you hear that one. But yeah, my overall favorite album from Kraftwerk, and I think this was them at their peak. But honestly, these two albums were peak probably. They were probably at their peak in 1980, and I don't know, but whatever. Then there's a few years of like 5 years of no album. Electronic Cafe actually got delayed because I forgot who it was. I'm sorry, I'm not like a super fan. I like them, but they're not like my favorite ever. But one of them was in a coma, so the album got delayed. And it was a noticeable downturn it was a noticeable downturn. Sorry for the brief cutoff. This program only allows 10 minutes. I have another program that's unlimited, but I don't feel like setting it up yet. But yes, Electronic Cafe was a noticeable downturn. Now, there are great tracks, but it's like the Man Machine and Computer World were just so great that if Electronic Cafe came out before them, it would have been good. But coming out after them, there was just so much hype to live up to on these two albums that Electric Cafe just didn't stand up. And of course, they didn't make anything after that. I don't know I don't know how it was received when it came out, but they didn't make anything else after that. The mix are just some like early 90s remixes of their tracks. Some of them were good, they're interesting. Concerts. Then finally in 2003 they released Tour de France, which they did a Tour de France single back in I think 83 between their Computer World and their Electric Cafe, which is actually a really good track. But then they finally fleshed out that idea into a full album. And you might think, okay, they've been off the scene for what, 17 years? It's probably not as good. It's actually much better than Electric Cafe. Like, they got their thing back together, and I understand why they really didn't do much after this. The Minimum Maximum is kind of a weird thing, because look at this. It's like some of their old tracks, and I don't know. I don't really count Minimum Maximum, so we're just gonna leave that out. But I think they thought that was a good place to stop, was Tour de France, and I think they put a lot of work into it. Now, I think two of the members had dropped out by this point. It was just Florian and what's his name? I'm sorry, I'm bad with the names. It was just Florian and I think. Wait, now I need to see the pictures. Where is it? Where is the picture? Oh well, it was two of them left. Who was the other guy? So there's still one guy who's doing it now, but with other like fill-in members. He's singing. I think it's. I know that there's like one picture. Is it him? It might be him. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I'm very bad with names, so I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, one of the last founding members is left, and he just does it with like session musicians. But he still had Florian with him when he did Tour de France. But the other two guys were gone, but there's two other new guys in their place, which kind of breathed some new life into Kraftwerk, but still had the old Kraftwerk in there, so it's kind of like a melding of new and old school. That Tour de France really, really holds up and is very underrated, extremely underrated. And I can't blame them for stopping there, because they did stop on a high point. They managed to do something I think better than Electric Cafe. I would probably say Tour de France is one of their best albums. It's on par with the other three great albums they've done. It's on par with those, I'd say, but just in a different kind of new way. Then they did all the catalogs and re-releases. Now, before this, they also did their Expo 2000, which is just a single track, Expo 2000. It's kind of simple, kind of weird. There's tons of remixes of it. You can check that out. But yeah, enough for the boring review. I know you didn't come in here for that. But yeah, they really pushed the boundaries. And even in 1970, with their krautrock, they were pushing the boundary. Now, their band had another name in the 60s. What was it called? It's probably in... Yeah, Organization. There we go. Look. They formed in the late 60s. Tone Float. This is a very weird album. But yes. So it's pretty crazy. But anyways, no, they were real pioneers on the electronic music scene, because what they brought to the table was just so alien and foreign compared to what had been there before. I think they are the ones who really jump-started electronic music. Some people call them the fathers of techno. Well, I mean, okay, they didn't directly create techno, but what they did influenced music to keep going forward in that genre. So no, they did not create techno, but they did plant the seed of electronic music. And like I said, I don't think we would have had people like Gary Newman. Now there is another early pioneer that I will show you guys, just so I'm more fair. But I want to show you another thing about these guys. Do you notice something else about them as you have noticed with Gary Newman? Have you noticed anything? I want to show you. Let's go forward one more real quick. You notice anything right there? Notice a lot of these electronic bands popped up in 1978. I really think the Trans-Europe Express album was just a shock to so many people. And well, here's the thing: the Radioactivity that came out in what, 75 was really their first electronic music album, but it didn't get the exposure that Trans-Europe Express did. Trans-Europe Express made an impact, and I think that got the ball rolling, and I think that's why people like Yellow Magic Orchestra and people like Gary Newman from Two Boy Army got their start. Now, you can disagree with me, sure, it's a free country, but I really think they're basically the people who started it. But yeah, it is a sad day. I mean, electronic music, it's been around for a while, but not too long, where most of the pioneers are still alive, but we are starting to lose a lot of them. So, you know, let's say some of the pioneers were in their 20s and 30s and the 70s, so, you know, they're in their 70s now. Yeah, and 80s. But it is sad. But this video is just so much ranting. I don't even know. You're probably not even watching this video anymore. But, you know, it's a sad thing. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about Kraftwerk. This is their very first album. Now, Kraftwerk, they do disown all of their music before Autobahn, but it's worth a listen. It's not the same kind of style, but you can see the little tiny roots taking place back then. If you like, you know, krautrock, it's not my favorite genre, but you know, I'd rather hear krautrock. My English is broke. I'd rather hear that than hear the garbage top 40 that's on the radio any day of the week. I'd rather hear the worst Kraftwerk song ever made than hear the newest Beyonce song. Okay, I know I'm going to get disliked for that, but sorry. Just don't like all that just soulless music. I mean, pop music just feels like it's made just to make money. Back in the day, it does feel like pop music, of course, was made to make money, but it was also made to be good. Now it's just made to appeal to the masses and just generate revenue. It just feels so fake. Even if what they sing about is real, it's just not, I can't connect to it. So, the only modern music which is still listenable to me is some electronic music and metal. Metal's always going to be listenable. I mean, I still don't think metal's as good as it used to be in the 80s and 90s, but hey, what can you do? Well, this video dragged out long enough. I hope you liked this. If you did like it, Spider-Man's going to tell you something, and nah, not Spider-Man. We're going to bring the Indian guy today. Indian guy needs to show y'all what's up. Alright, see ya.
Thank you for watching the video. Please share this with all of your friends and fellow synth nerds. If you like the video, please leave a thumbs up and remember to subscribe for future content. Hit that notification bell to never miss a video. Be safe everyone, and always remember that Tunak Tunak Tun is the best song ever.